Hi, this is Ivan Misner, founder of BNI, and it is a real pleasure to be speaking at your event. Thank you very much for the invitation. Today, I'll be talking about infinite giving, the 7 principles of givers gain. Uh, this is one of my most recent books. I did it with Julian Lewis and Greg Davies. It was a lot of fun to do. And more importantly, it really focuses on something that is important in BNI, and that is our principal core value, our philosophy of the organization, Givers Gain. So we called the book Infinite Giving because the truth is that Givers Gain plus 7 principles that we talk about in the book is what equals infinite giving. And those 7 principles are they in your light? Give without expectation, give more than expected, give what you can afford. It's okay to gain, stay humble, and the gratitude effect. Givers gain plus these 7 principles equals infinite giving. So let's talk about the 7 principles. The first is, are they in your light? And this is really making reference to a book that I wrote that you may have heard of called Who's in Your Room? And Who's in Your Room basically says that imagine that you live in one room, your entire life in one room, and that one room has only one door, and that one door is an enter only door. So that when people come into your life or into your room, they're there forever. You can never get them out. And the whole concept of the book is really that the quality of your life is dependent on the people in your life, particularly the people that are close to you, that are in your light, the ones that you work with regularly, your fellow BNI members, the people that you're seeing week in and week out. Those are the people that are in your light. And so it's really important to be selective about the quality of people that you bring into your room or into your life. You want high quality business professionals that are there to help you and that you're there to help them. And it's really the single most important principle in building an amazing life is the quality of the people that are in your life. And that's the first principle of infinite giving. You see, the people that are in our lives definitely determine the quality of our lives. And that means that life is about discernment. Sometimes that discernment includes evaluating the people that are in your life and how they impact your personal and professional environment. It's one of the reasons why we created a membership committee in BNI, was to help make sure to bring in quality people and to keep quality people in a chapter. Now, infinite giving doesn't mean you have to be an infinite victim. Sometimes, people will tell me I've given and given and given, and the person doesn't give back to me. And so it's very important that you recognize that infinite giving doesn't mean you need to be a victim. This is where discernment comes into play. If you feel like you give and give some more and end up feeling like you're a victim because people are only taking, then you need to be more discerning about who you associate with. It's important to assess the people trying to gain entry into your room, or if they're there already, to assess the people that are trying to get close to you and stand under your light. And we talk in the book about how to deal with people that you have given a lot to, they haven't given back, and how to address that with individuals. It's a really important section of the book. Givers Gain seeks to imagine a world where diversity is a strength and everybody can create success. If Givers Gain is a philosophy that says if I give to you, then you'll be motivated to give to me or to others within our Givers Gain community. And if enough people do this within the boundaries of the 7 principles of Givers Gain, then communities around the world will be a better place. Certainly our BNI chapters around the world will be a better place. The second principle of infinite giving is to give without expectation. Give without expectation. So a gift is not a gift if we expect something in return. The second principle is simple. When we give, we should do so without the expectation of a direct return. It's not a there's a big difference between a long-term strategy of reciprocal relationships and the transactional strategy of this for that. Giver's gain works best when there's no transactional expectation. And the seven principles, when they're followed properly, then they're followed correctly, allow the world to create giver's gain communities like BNI that sustain themselves in a world of infinite giving. True giver's gain is an intention, not an expectation. Those invested in the process know that they're gaining every time they meet, every leadership role they occupy, every time they encourage someone else to stay the course. Their business will be growing, their influence expanding, and their results will be worthy of emulating. It's also important to remember that giver's gain is a standard that one must apply to themselves and not a stick that you hit other people with. Giver's gain is a standard that you have to apply to your own behavior. I have seen that over and over again around the years. Oftentimes, people who say, well, they don't have a giver's gain attitude, oftentimes they're the one that actually doesn't have the giver's gain attitude. It's a standard that you have to constantly be applying to yourself. Principle number 3, give more than expected. Give more than expected. I'm going to tell you a great story that was shared by my co-authors in the book. And it's about a letter that Lily Robinson, now you may or may not be able to read this, I'll read it to you. Lily Robinson wrote it to Sainsbury Supermarkets, and it says, "Dear Sainsbury's," I have no idea why there were so many S's, B's, and Y's in this, but there it is. She said, "Why is tiger bread called tiger bread? It should be called giraffe bread. Love from Lily Robinson, 3.5." And that's Lily's signature. And who knows what the drawings are, but that's from Lily. Well, what was amazing was that Sainsbury actually wrote back, and this is the letter that Sainsbury wrote back. It said, "Dear Lily, thanks so much for your letter. I think renaming tiger bread to giraffe bread is a brilliant idea. It looks much more like the blotches on a giraffe than it does the stripes on a tiger, doesn't it? It's called tiger bread because the first baker who made it a long time ago thought it looked stripy like a tiger, and maybe they were just a bit silly. I really liked reading your letter, so I thought I would send you a little present. I've put a £3 sterling gift card in the letter. If you ask your mom and dad to take you to Sainsbury's, you could use it to buy some of your own tiger bread. And maybe if mom and dad say it's okay, you can get some sweeties too. Please tell an adult to wait 48 hours before sending the card." I'm glad you wrote to us, and I hope you like spending your gift card. See you in the store. Yours sincerely, Chris King, age 27 1/3. I just love this letter. And so did Lily's mother. She was so impressed with the letter and the warm response that she posted both letters on her blog, along with her gratitude for the effort shown by a large corporation to respond to a little girl. Before long, the exchange between Lily and Chris had gone viral, and a campaign with over 1,000 comments was started to lobby Sainsbury's to change their name officially from tiger to giraffe bread. Now, spotting a unique opportunity to reinforce the customer is always right mantra, leadership approved the name change and placed on the shelf where the now correctly named giraffe bread sits, reads a sign that says, "Thanks to a clever suggestion from one of our customers, we've changed the name of our tiger bread to giraffe bread. Don't worry, the recipe hasn't changed and the bread still tastes as great as ever." There are many ways of exceeding expectations, and this is an example that of just one that gives us a great idea of some of the kinds of things that we can do to exceed expectations. And I see that in BNI so often that we get together every week. We're looking across uh, a Zoom room or in person or across a table with the people in our chapter, and we want to exceed expectations. And that's what I see happen most often in BNI. The truth is, it only requires a little time and effort to really set you apart from the rest. And that's what we mean when we say give more than expected. The next principle is give what you can afford. Now, that may sound a little contradictory. Give what, more than expected, but give what you can afford. Um, Giving more than expected and giving what you can afford are not mutually exclusive. This is part of applying discernment to your actions. Give more than may be expected, but never exceed what you can afford. Do one while respecting the other. We have a good friend, Lisa Nichols, who shared this with me a couple of years ago. She said, always give from your saucer, not your cup. As you become more successful and your success overflows into your saucer, give freely from that saucer. And this really resonated with me because I experienced that personally when I've always believed in giving back into the local communities from where I serve. And when I was a much younger man, I didn't have any money to give, and so I gave my time. I was a big brother in the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization. And then later I joined the board of a small nonprofit organization, and that organization grew and grew. And I was able, as my business became more successful, to give time and to give money. And later I was on the board for a university and another organization. And my saucer has gotten full and my cup has overflowed, and I've been able to give more of both time and money. And I think this is a brilliant concept. And as your cup overflows, give freely from your saucer. The next principle, principle number 5, is it's okay to gain. It's okay to gain. Giver's gain is 2 words, and receiving is part of that philosophy. With giver's gain, we all have the right to give and to gain. The confidence to be vulnerable comes from building trust with a team or a group. It's okay to ask for what you need. When you've built a meaningful relationship, you've earned the right to ask. Somebody shared a story with me a number of years ago about a woman who was really struggling in business, and in a one-to-one with a fellow BNI member, she shared that. And she was actually concerned that she would have to close down her business in about a month. And he said, you have got to share that with your chapter, with our chapter. You need to share that and let people know that things are tough. And she said, well, I feel embarrassed to bring it up, and I don't know that I can do that. And he said, do you mind if I say something on your behalf? And she said, really? You would be willing to do that? And he said, yes. And at the next meeting, he stood up. This is when we were having meetings in person, and he shared what she had shared with him and said that she had given permission to share it. And what was so incredible about that story was that the chapter just emotionally encircled her and stepped up and helped her. People that were, able to give referrals, but they hadn't been thinking about her, really went out of their way to find her referrals. And at the end of the month, she had so many referrals. She was able to go for several months. And over the next 2 or 3 months, she continued to get referrals. And that chapter totally saved her business. When you've built a meaningful relationship, you've earned the right to ask. Where it goes wrong is if you haven't built a relationship and you ask. That's what social capital is about. Social capital is about investing in relationships. And when you invest in those relationships, you've definitely earned the right to ask. Principle number 7 is stay humble. It's very important in infinite giving to stay humble. You see, I believe that humble people don't think less of themselves. They just think of themselves less. A humble person's ego does not enter the room before they do. They're approachable, meaning they're friendly and easy to talk to. They listen and they ask questions during a conversation. They maintain eye contact in a conversation and they stay engaged in that discussion. They show genuine interest. They're comfortable making people feel at ease and thanking people when appropriate. Humble people tend to have an abundance mentality and they tend to focus on solutions rather than simply rail about problems. They're situationally aware, they have strong emotional intelligence, they're not self-absorbed, and most importantly, they regularly practice giver's gain. They approach life with a certain amount of altruism and strive to make a difference for other people. I have seen this with many successful people. I've seen some successful people who aren't very humble, but I've seen many. And it's really surprised me how humble many successful people can be. I have met Richard Branson, the founder of the Virgin companies, Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Cruises, Virgin Hotels, Virgin Galactic, Virgin everything. And I am here to tell you, he is one of the most humble people I've ever met. He is absolutely able to talk to people at all levels of an organization. I saw him once strike up a conversation with one of the workers on his island where he was doing hard labor, knocking down a wall with a sledgehammer. And he walked on up to him and he said, I know this is really hard work, but I want to tell you why it's so incredibly important work to do. And then he described to this man why the project was important and what his plans were to do in this part of the island and how none of that could take place until this building, this one-story building, had been knocked down. And he told him how much he appreciated his work and thanked him for the hard work he was doing. Now, Branson's a billionaire. He didn't have to spend a few minutes with this employee who is basically probably making the Caribbean version of minimum wage and explain to him why the work he was doing was so important. But he literally walked out of his way, walked off the path over to him and said those things so that this person could feel better about the work he was doing. And to me, this is a great example of showing humility and absolutely it's part of infinite giving. Principle number 7 is the gratitude effect. The gratitude effect. I love this concept. Gratitude is not new age psychobabble. It is science. Gratitude is science. Harvard Medical School recently reported that there have been multiple studies showing that people who express gratitude are more optimistic and felt better about themselves. The Templeton Foundation conducted studies that showed that an attitude of gratitude can actually have a positive and lasting effect on the brain. A paper published by the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence concluded that expressing gratitude completes a feeling of connection with others, something that I think is pretty important in an organization like BNI. Even neuroscientists argue that gratitude is effective. Paul Zak, a professor at Claremont Graduate University, states that neuroscience actually shows that recognition has the largest effect on trust, especially when it's tangible, unexpected, personal, and public. Why do you think we recommend that you really focus on doing testimonials whenever possible at a BNI chapter, personal and public. UC Berkeley conducted MRI scans on individuals who wrote gratitude letters and compared them to MRI scans of people who did not. They found that the people who wrote gratitude letters had a greater activation in the medial prefrontal cortex than those who did not write the letters. And the medial prefrontal cortex is, among other things, believed to be the area of the brain that triggers responses to nicotine, drugs, and alcohol. It's the pleasure center of the brain. That is amazing to me that gratitude triggers the pleasure center of the brain, but Berkeley has shown that in MRI studies. Studies by the Cicero group that were published in Forbes found that people who are on the receiving end of gratitude have a 33% increase in their innovation and a 22% increase in work results. And more importantly, they stay with the organization longer than those who are in companies who don't practice appreciating your people. Isn't that really perfect for BNI? More productivity on both giving and receiving and staying involved in the organization longer. The truth is that gratitude improves attitude, feelings of connection, and results. Gratitude, like so many other principles of success, is simple, but it's not easy. Gratitude is not New Age psychobabble. It is, in fact, science. The gratitude effect doesn't take much effort, and it costs little or nothing to show. The truth is that your words make a difference. Planned or unplanned, your words make a difference. Sometimes it is something little that you say, that you mention to a mutual friend. For example, I have a good friend, Phil Berg, who one day posted something on Facebook about some people in his world who were complaining a lot. And he said, it was just very, very frustrating, and it was bringing him down. And he posted that on Facebook. And someone alerted me to that post. And I just simply wrote, it was just off the cuff. I didn't think much about it, but I got on the post and I wrote the following. I said, I understand your words more than most. You can do this. You make a difference in the world. Critics don't change the world for the better, and no one has ever built a statue to a critic. Focus on the positive difference you're making. That's how I get through. I left it. I didn't think about it again after I sent it. And a few weeks later, I got an email with a photograph. And this was the photograph that Phil sent. And he said, in the email, he said, don't underestimate. That's it. That's all that Phil said to me. And apparently Phil blew it up and made a frame out of it and keeps it in his office. And to me, you see, this is a perfect example of how sometimes you can say little things, positive or negative, and it impresses people. Luckily, I said something positive to Phil, and he did this, and I was very moved by the fact that it made him feel better. And I think it's important for us to recognize those little things we say can make a big difference in people's lives. And showing gratitude for something that someone has done in many different ways makes an impact that goes far beyond what you may think. Applying giver's gain in your business is the last thing that I would like to talk about in relation to the book. Giver's gain, I believe, is not only a great way to get business, it's an even better way to do business. We give because we understand that in a community, what we do, others will do, and we will all benefit from it. We give because we know that in the same situation, others would do the same for us. We give because we want to give back where we've profited from. We give because when we work together, we get bigger and better results than working on our own. And we give because we enjoy it. Acts of giving change lives. The more people in the world who adopt the philosophy of giver's gain, the more prosperity increases. Give a referral opportunity between two other businesses you know, maybe a supplier of yours and a client of yours. Give mentoring to a business that needs your expertise. Give your knowledge to local business groups. Give to a local education and youth community groups. Give to the elders in your community. Acts of giving change lives, and they change lives for the better. There's a great story that was shared by my co-authors in the book about the Rock Tumbler. And it's a story that Steve Jobs once told about an old man who lived down his street when he was a young boy. And Steve reminisced about doing casual yard work for him, raking leaves, cutting grass, the standard stuff to earn a few dollars. And after a while, a friendship grew between these two. And one day, young Steve was invited to the man's workshop. And the man showed him a homemade rock tumbler that was cobbled together out of an old coffee can and a drill motor. It was nothing as nice as this photograph here, but it was a rock tumbler. And he told Steve to go out and get a handful of plain old rocks and put them into the can with some water and what looked like a squeeze of toothpaste, but it was actually grit compound. And they closed the rock tumbler and turned it on. And Steve stood there transfixed as the homemade device rattled away on the workbench. And the man told Steve that he would have to come back tomorrow because it would take time to achieve a result. And the next day, Steve literally stood outside the locked workshop waiting for the man to come and open up. And he could, faintly hear the device through the locked door. After what seemed like an age, the man appeared, unlocked the door, and young Steve rushed into the workbench, and the man laid out a white cloth and turned off the tumbler, removed the lid, and poured the contents onto the cloth. And that handful of plain old rocks that Steve had put in there just a day before had been transformed amazingly into these polished rocks of all different colors, shapes, sizes, and patterns. Like the stones in the rock tumbler, the 7 principles of giver's gain need to work together and polish each other to make a final sparkling result. Infinite giving can only thrive when all 7 principles are applied consistently. Start small, but start today. Begin local, but think global. Influence one life, and you begin to influence the world. Just start with the person next to you, and always remember that you may not make a world of difference, but you can make a difference in the world. Now go out and make a difference in the world. Giver's gain plus the 7 principles equal infinite giving. GG plus 7P equals IG. Giver's gain is an idea that proclaims we can be something bigger than ourselves. It truly is about taking off your bib and putting on an apron. And yes, my staff thought it would be cute to put a photograph of a much younger me giving a donut, which I don't eat anymore, but giving a piece of a donut to my eldest daughter, who's now 30 35, but she was just a little girl then. But Giver's Gain is really about this. It's about taking off your bib and putting on an apron. Infinite giving is about whose story are you in? You know, we all have people that are in our story. I could tell you stories about people that have made a huge difference in my life. On my blog, I've written about many people who've made a massive difference in my life. And those are important, but they're really about us. The truth is, you really want to make a difference in the world? It's not who's in our story. It's whose story are you in? It's not who's in your story. It's whose story are you in? Whose life are you making a difference in? Your actions matter. The older I get, the less I believe in words and the more I believe in actions. What you say, what you do for other people, that's what makes a difference in the world. And that is absolutely part of infinite giving. A good friend of mine, Sam Horn, wrote a book called Someday is Not a Day in the Week. We often look at the world and hope that someday things will be different. Someday is not a day of the week. If we want for someday, we're waiting for others to make the first move. Someday can be today, and it can start with us. Today is as good a day as any to be our someday. We can all make a difference starting today, and that difference starts with a transformational change within us in how we deal with the people around us and the world beyond them. To me, Giver's Gain is more than a phrase. It's a way of living one's life. It's a perspective to view and interact with the world. It's an attitude, not an expectation. And when it's applied properly, it will change your life. And when it changes enough lives, it will change the world. You may not be able to make a difference, but you can make a difference in the world. Go out today, practice the 7 principles of infinite giving, practice the philosophy of Giver's Gain, and start to make a difference in the world. This is Ivan Misner, founder of BNI. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today.